A couple weeks ago, I had Richard Spencer on my show, and the time went by like 90 going north. We didn't get a chance to get to some phone call for him, so I asked him to come back that we might take some calls. And Richard is a very, very interesting guy to me, and I'd like to know more about him. Richard Spencer is Skyping with me this morning. And by the way, folks, in the next hour, it's Manhood Hour. Richard is co-editor of altright.com, altright.com, and president of the National Policy Institute. And I'm happy to have Richard back. Welcome back, Richard.
Well, thanks for having me back. It's my pleasure.
I really appreciate you being here. Just for the folks who might not understand, I know we talked about it last time, who might not understand what the alt-right is about and how long it's been around, tell them.
Sure. I started using the term alt-right in the summer of 2009. And at that point, the term was, you could say, a bigger tent. It was, I had recognized, and a lot of people around me had recognized, that the conservative movement as we knew it had gone down the wrong path, that the conservative movement as expressed by George W. Bush, as expressed by the Iraq War, as expressed by many more things, was leading to disaster. It wasn't going anywhere good, and that we had to begin again. And over the years, that term alt-right has been picked up by people, many more people than just myself and some of my colleagues. But it actually has a core meaning that we all share, and that meaning is identity. So our conservatism doesn't begin with, say, free markets and liberalism and fighting the Soviet Union and so on, as it did with the William F. Buckley's movement that began in the 1950s. It doesn't even really begin with being a U.S. citizen. It begins with having an identity. And having an identity means being part of a greater story, something that's bigger than yourself, being part of an extended family, which is another word, another way of saying being part of a race. So that is the core of where we begin. And because we begin in this different place, we'll often take positions that are surprisingly different than mainstream conservatism. But it's an identitarian movement. And it will express itself in identity politics. But it's identity politics for European Americans, that is, white people.
Identity politics has not and is not working well for others who identify with identity politics. You know, the women, the homosexuals, the Mexicans. It's not working out very well for them. Why would you go down that road with identity politics?
Well, first off, I'm not sure I would say that it's not working out well for them. African Americans have gained quite a bit by pursuing identity politics. That is, having a sense of themselves, a sense of their place in society, of working together as a family and pursuing their ends. Now,
why do you think that?
I don't think the civil rights movement would have existed as a pure abstract liberal movement. It existed because it was about black people, and black people could say, this is about us. This is about a particular people with a particular history, a particular story.
And you believe
that's why it succeeded.
You believe that it's working out well for black people, those who identify with identity politics, with being black or African American? It's not working well for them at all. Black people, not all, but most, and all who identify with African American or black politics, they're unhappy, their family lives are destroyed, they're insecure, they're angry, they're nasty, they hate white people, they don't get along with one another, they don't think as individuals, so they can't move forward in life, they fight with each other. I mean, it's not working for them at all. And most of the country, I would go as far as to say all cultures in America hate black people or resist them because of the way they are. It's not working well for them at all.
Well, there are tremendous amounts of problems in the Black community, in the African American community, that have many different causes, you could say. All I'm saying is that that tremendous political power that was achieved, moving from segregation to integration, was achieved because Black people conceived of themselves as not just individuals, but as a family.
Not
And
true.
that,
Not true, Richard.
well,
Really
well,
not true.
okay.
The Black family is not working. And even though Blacks can live in white communities and go to white schools, the Blacks are still not happy. They hate the whites, and now they want single spaces, and they want Black dormitories, and it's not working, Richard, at all.
What I'm saying is that we have to look at causation and then correlation. There are tremendous amounts of problems within the African American community that derive from a number of different sources. Did all of these derive simply from the fact that Blacks understand themselves as a people? I think identity is so deep that it's something no one can really get away from. Even that Americana, that raceless, colorblind Americana that you promote and many, many millions of white people want to reassert, that is effectively white. It's white whether we like it or not. It derives from European norms. It derives, even more particular, it derives from Anglo-Saxon Protestant norms. The America that you and others are trying to return to or revive is a fundamentally white conception. It would only emerge from a peculiar people at a peculiar time in a peculiar place. So everything has identity at its core. The whole world is shot through with identity. Even if we had the exact same political system that we have right now, the Constitution, and we had different people in the country. We did not have an overwhelming white majority in our history, and still a white majority now. The country would look and feel and act fundamentally differently. It would be a totally different place.
I understand.
So people matter.
Let me ask, Richard, you said some very interesting thing. Are you saying that identity politics isn't the cause of the breakdown in the Black family?
Yes, I am saying that.
Well, what is the cause of the breakdown in the Black community with Black folks?
This might be difficult to take. I mean, this might be something that a lot of your listeners haven't heard before. There are many different causes. One of the most fundamental causes of the breakdown of the Black community is simply the African race itself. We have evolved over tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years to be different races that are not different species, but are actually fundamentally different. Just as when you look at the natural world, different varieties of animals have different behaviors. They have different average intelligences. They have different ways of being, ways of doing things, and so on. The average African intelligence is quite lower than the intelligence that you would find among Caucasians. Africans benefited a great deal from, you could not just segregation, but a kind of paternalistic system that whites, I mean, yes, there was a lot of, there was violence, there was hatred and so on, and animosity, sure. But there was actually a great deal of love in American history, a kind of paternalistic love, a sense that we are going to take care of you, we are going to convert you to Christianity, we are going to organize and structure your lives. We lived under white supremacy, and African Americans lived under white supremacy, and I think they benefited from that to a degree, in the sense that white people structured the lives of Africans. Now
that's
Africans
not true,
are
though.
thrown
That's
into
not
a
true.
world. Okay, well, now Africans
let me
are
tell you
thrown
why.
into a world where these structures have dissolved, And it's chaotic for African Americans. It's also chaotic for white people. I mean, to a lesser degree, but almost all of the problems in terms of the breakdown of the family, in terms of the fragmentation of identity, in terms of sexual debauchery, and so on.
So let me
These are problems that are faced by everyone.
Explain this. Prior to the civil rights movement, blacks were doing better or as well as white folks. And when it came to in the area of family, when it came to family, morality, blacks were doing better than whites when I was growing up. They had family, they built their own communities, they had black universities and schools where they were guided by what was right rather than identity politics. So they did better. It wasn't until the civil rights movement started and they believed into the lie from Lyndon B. Johnson and the so-called civil rights leaders, that they needed to be with white people, they needed the government, and they let the values go, and that's when they fell apart, and they're still wandering around in the darkness. So if what you said about intelligence, why were they doing better than whites in those days than they are today? Because we didn't live under white supremacists. We lived under the values of God and family and country. Richard, do you believe that Christianity is the white man's religion?
Interestingly, Christianity emerged as a post-Jewish religion in its origins. But certainly what we know as Christianity today, aesthetically, theologically, and so on, is a European religion, no doubt. And that goes for the Roman Catholic or Orthodox or Germanic Protestant formation. Those are all different variations on a Central European idea. So yes, the Christianity that we call Christianity today is a white man's religion.
Richard, stop it.
That doesn't mean it's only for white people.
No, Christianity is a Jewish religion. It was ushered in by the Messiah. And I believe that white people grabbed hold of it in Europe and other parts of the world, and that's why they were able to have a good life and create a good nation and all that, because of those Christian values, where other cultures seem not to have grabbed hold of that. But it's not a white man's religion.
Europeans had amazing civilizations before they ever heard the word Christian. We, in fact, dominated the world long before that, and we created amazing advances in mathematics and art and philosophy.
So you're talking about the Roman Empire?
Before Christianity.
You're talking about the Roman Empire.
I'm talking about the Greco-Roman world, the Persian world. Yeah. You can go on and on.
Let me ask this, though. What does it profit you as an individual? Because you're a smart man and you see what's going on. What good is it doing you to make Christianity? Because the angry blacks are calling Christianity the white man's religion, and that Islam is the black man's religion. And I think they're insane for doing that, because there's nothing good in Islam at all. And I don't see Christianity as a white man or black man's religion, because I know how it came about. What good is it doing you personally to see it as a white man's religion?
Well, I see it as a white man's religion because I care about the truth of history. Now, I was very specific. Just because what we call Christianity is derived from European consciousness does not mean that other people can't adopt it. To a very strong degree, they might adopt a European form of it. But even while adopting it, they're going to change it. You know, there's this thing that...
But what good is it doing you to see it that way?
I don't think, it not necessarily any good or any ill. I mean, I don't, sometimes things just are what they are. And it might be really nice to tell ourselves that Christianity is universal universal or so on. But the Christianity that we know today, not the Christianity as it originally manifested itself with Jesus Christ, and Paul and so on, but the Christianity that we know today does derive from our consciousness. It's very similar to other cultures, like the Japanese culture. They took their characters, they took tremendous amounts of things from China, but a certain
Richard,
Japanese spirit made them Japanese.
But the last time we talked,
it's this term cultural appropriation.
Last time we talked, you said that you are an atheist, so you don't identify with Christianity at all, right?
Well, I do identify with Christianity to a degree. I've actually said I'm a cultural Christian in the sense that as a child, I certainly resonated with Christianity. I don't think that I can divorce myself from Christian tradition because of who I am. The Christian tradition is part of my own personal story, and it's part of our racist story. So I'm being honest with you.
What is cultural Christianity? What does that mean?
Well, what it means is that I myself might not be a believer. However, I recognize the power and importance of Christianity in my own life and the way that I think and act and see the world, and I recognize its power and importance for my people.
Do you love black people?
Do I love black people? I'm not sure I would say I love black people. No.
Do you hate black people?
No, I don't hate them.
Do you love them?
I don't love them, no.
So you have to either love or hate.
I'm not sure everything's such a binary thing.
There's no in between. There's no gray area. You either have a lot of gray area. No, you either have love or you have hate. Only the blind think that there is gray. There's gray.
Well, I think we might see the world differently. I don't see the world in this binary of love and hate. I think a lot of things that we say we hate, we might secretly love. I think that we have a tremendous amount of ambivalence towards the world. I can recognize the legitimacy of the black race. I can appreciate them to a degree, but just to say that I unequivocally love black people, I won't. I don't.
But do you understand that if you don't love black people, you love no one? Because you can't love.
I love white people.
No, you can't.
Why?
Because you're either of love or you're of hate. And I don't mean emotional love that comes from mama. I don't mean that love that's in the fallen state. I mean a love that is non-judgmental. You see what's going on, but you don't resent what's going on. You deal with what's going on, but you don't resent what's going on. So if you don't, and love is not a feeling. You don't feel it, you don't taste it, you can't touch it. It just is. It's a guiding light. And so you can't even love your own child and hate someone else. You either love or you don't love.
Well, I'll ask you this. Do you have children?
Yes.
Okay, do you love them more than my child?
No.
That's ridiculous. I mean, this is the thing. I would imagine, just because you're a good person, is if there were a dilemma where you had to give up your life so that your child could live, I imagine that you would do that without a moment's hesitation.
I don't know that for sure. I will have to wait until that happened. I don't know that for sure. Now, in my ego state, I can say, yes, I would give up my life for your child. But a situation
No. I'm not saying my child.
I mean my child.
Your own child.
No, my child.
Your child. You would give up your life.
I don't know that.
For your own child.
No, I do not know that.
I think you would.
It will feel good for me to say that, but if the situation came, I would have to make the decision then.
Well, I would say that, and maybe I am being idealistic, but I would certainly give up my life so that my child could live. But I would not do that for others. We love our family more than we love other people. It's just that's a much deeper that's much more human.
No,
in terms of erotic love, I think you're being in a way too abstract and maybe too Christian by saying you love the world. We don't love the world. And in terms of erotic love,
I don't love the world.
Emotions matter.
I don't love the world. I'm overcoming the world. I don't love the world, but I love what's right. I love my
But
creator.
erotic love, when you really want someone, I mean, you might love them and have kindness to them, but you also want to possess them.
but, but I don't have that erotic love, right. But I know what you're saying. But that's not the kind of love I'm talking about. So I got a couple questions by way of text and email for you, and then we'll get to the callers. The first one is, you say you don't love blacks. Do you have a sense of brotherhood with black alt-rights or black white lives matter? I mean, white black lives matter.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I would say that in terms of people whom I respect, maybe I could have a more productive conversation with an individual who appreciates identitarianism or the alt-right, who's black, more than some shrill, obese SJW with blue hair who's going to scream at me and so on. Yeah, sure. On an individual basis, that could certainly be the case.
Do you love me?
But in terms of our bigger family, I love white people.
Do you love me?
I do love you, Jesse. I really enjoy speaking with you.
Why do you love me? And I'm black as the ace of spades.
Because you're a cool guy.
You know, last time I spoke to you, you seemed uncomfortable about talking about your father. Do you love your father? And so many people ask me about that, by the way.
Yes.
Do you love your father?
I do love my father, yes.
And do you have a tight relationship with him?
Well, I mean, to be honest, our relationship has been a bit strained, to be honest.
Do you love...
and it has a lot to do with my career and all of the implications of that.
And he is rejecting your career?
I wouldn't say rejecting it. I just think it builds up tension and misunderstanding and so on. Because the thing is, when I was doing what I'm doing 5 years ago, and I certainly had a following, but I didn't have the name recognition. I wasn't making the impact. There was no blowback or spillover into his life, or it wasn't as intense.
Right.
And now things are much more intense. And they've actually been intense for about 3 or 4 years. And yeah, there certainly there's some tension. I mean, if you do what I do, there's going to be some familial problems because they feel like you're dragging them into your world in a way.
And how do you feel about that?
It's very natural.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I don't want that to happen, but at the same time, I feel so strongly, so passionately about what I'm doing that I simply won't stop. I will protect my family. I mean, my mother was actually attacked in a completely vicious way by this woman named Tanya Gersh in Montana, who was trying to claim that this real estate project that my mother is involved with is some alt-right thing, which is totally ridiculous. And she was trying, I mean, she went as far as trying to force my mother to sell property. I mean, it was outrageous. And I obviously stuck up for my mother. But at the same time, I won't stop. I don't think I can stop just because there might be spillover to family members. But I would say on a deeper level, in terms of your relationship with your father, I don't think I'm alone as someone who's a Gen Xer or a millennial. I think that there's a deeper tension between the baby boom generation and my generation and people who are younger. We seem to be living in different worlds. We use different language. There's a kind of, you could say, Oedipal tension where we feel like the baby boomer generation of white conservatives who want to talk about the Constitution and war and freedom and capitalism. So we feel that they just don't get it.
Let me ask you this, Richard, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but time. 2 quick questions.
It's fine.
Maybe 3. Do you love your children more than you love your father?
That's an interesting question. I guess I do love my children more than I love my father. I think the children should matter more. They're our future. They're the continuation of our story. And so I probably do have maybe a more intense unequivocal love in that sense.
And
Sure.
Are your parents still married? Are they together?
Yes, they are.
And so you're married, right?
Yes.
And your wife is okay with what you're doing?
Yes.
And are you the head of your wife?
Yes.
You are the head of your wife?
Yeah, well, I try to be, yes. Look, I don't think we should get into all of my own. In terms of my marriage, it's actually, I'll to be honest, it's we've had problems that are probably personal, but we've also had problems due to my career choice.
Yeah.
So look, what I have been through in terms of my personal life has been extremely difficult.
So, Richard, you have any information you want to give out before we go to the calls? Your website or anything?
Is a good starting point, as is my Twitter feed, Richard B. Spencer. MPIamerica.org is also not a bad place, but alt-right is probably the best place to start.
Okay, altright.com. Let's see here. Let's go to the Bible Go-To Guy out of Los Angeles, California. Bible Go-To Guy, thanks for calling and thanks for holding. You're on with Richard Spencer.
Oh, great. Oh, hey, good morning, Richard Spencer. Thanks for taking my call,
Jesse. A little louder, Bible Go-To Guy.
Yeah, good morning, Richard. Good morning, Jesse.
Morning.
Morning.
Richard, it being a white man's religion, isn't it odd that the greatest spokesman today for the Christian religion is a black man? And
whom are you referring to?
Even the Jewish religion.
Who are you talking about? Martin Luther King? Are you talking about Martin Luther King?
Yeah, right.
He want to know who you're referring to.
I'm referring to the man you're speaking with, Richard.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
You know.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You know, this thing where Jesse says that he loves another man's child as much as his own is because he has the love of God in him, and the love of God is equal to everybody. You know, it doesn't have the favorites, and it tries to, you know, speak to everybody to change their life and to come back to the Father. That's what God wants, and that thing you talk about, you know, the whites this, the whites that. You know, the whites over in Europe, they're always forgetting about their God, and that's why they're in the mess they're in today, is because they become like the Europeans back in the revolution, you know, back before the Americans left Europe. The white Americans saw that the white Europeans, most of them, had just like forgotten about God and Christianity, and they moved away to form a new nation that was bedrocked in true Christian values, and they wanted to break away from the
Baba, we got a lot of people waiting. Do you have a question, or you want him to respond to that?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to that.
Go ahead.
I'll respond
Richard.
to those things real quick. Yeah, I mean, first off, there are amazing Asian musicians who play the, say, piano or harpsichord, who can play Mozart and Beethoven and do it brilliantly well. You could even say that they are the best musician of the moment. But that doesn't mean that those instruments themselves, and also, but much more importantly, the music and the spirit of the music and what it can convey emotionally and intellectually and sensually is European. It derives from a certain soul, a Germanic soul, whether Beethoven or Mozart, so on, or an Italian soul and other great musicians. The English weren't so good at creating classical music, but yes. So what you're saying, Jesse is a great representative of the Christian faith, but that doesn't mean that what we call Christianity isn't fundamentally European. It was not European in its origins. I will certainly admit that. But what became Christianity? The other, in terms of loving all children, I feel like this is just happy talk. We can say, "Oh, I love all children. All men are equal. We treat everyone as the same." We don't. We never have in world history, and we should. That's not even a good goal because it is so utterly impossible. We favor ourselves, certainly. We favor our own children more than we favor others, and we should. We give our children privilege. My parents gave me a tremendous amount of white privilege. I would never deny that in a million years. We care about other people. We care about our own more than we care about others.
Richard, when I talk about love, I'm not talking about happy talk. I don't feel emotional toward other people's children or even my own. I just don't have that anger toward anyone. And so I see reality as it is. And when my children or anyone else's children are doing wrong, I am willing to correct that because I see that they're in a fallen state or they need that correction. But I don't feel that. I'm not into that happy love. That's not real love. That's love that comes from being in a fallen state. So that's not the love. That's the love that human beings need to overcome. That's not real love at all.
See what I mean, Richard?
Okay. I can agree with that, but I don't think we should I don't think we actually should overcome our basic emotions. Oftentimes our gut leads us to the truth. You know, from just a gut level, when I see my child, I love her so much more. I care about her infinitely more than other children around her, white children. You know, this isn't a race thing. I think that actually speaks at some deeper truth. That actually gets you at the truth much better than this kind of abstract, so we should all look to the Father, we're all one, and so on. So sometimes getting in touch with who we are as human beings, as
yeah, but that kind of love, Richard,
is actually far more powerful. It tells us more about the world,
okay,
more about history, and so on.
Last word, real fast, Baba Gotika.
Yeah, I'm saying that kind of love can easily backfire on you when your kids turn against you. You know, as they start getting older, then the parents want a love back from their kids. Yeah. They don't get it because they don't have the love of God in them. They're seeking it from their kids.
Thank you, Baba Gotika. I got to run, yeah. That kind of love, Richard, don't respond to this, but that kind of love that you're talking about, you wish your wife did not have. You know, because it drives you nuts. It drives the kids nuts. It kills the cat. It kills the grass and the dog. So that's not the right kind of love. Let's go to Joseph out of North Carolina. Joseph, thanks for calling and thanks for holding your arm with Richard Spencer.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
I always listen to y'all talk about love, and perfect love casts out fear. Fear hath torment. And there's a lot of people in this world tormented because they don't have that perfect love.
Right. Everyone who has anger are tormented. Richard, they do not have peace.
No, I'm not a very angry guy.
Do you have?
I get angry about things. You know, look, emotions, things like hate, anger, those are very human, natural things. I am deeply frustrated by the way the world is headed. I have fear as well for the future. That doesn't mean that I'm a hate monger. I'm based on fear or something. I rightfully hate things.
Richard, because of time.
I rightfully hate injustice.
Because of time, do you have anger?
Sure, I feel angry.
Do you have anger?
Everyone does.
You have anger?
Of course I have anger.
Where did it come from?
And where does it come from? I mean, I'm
No,
angry
how did you become and how did you develop anger? Where did it come from? The original place that anger came from for you. Where did it come from?
Well, we're getting very deep here. I get angry at the world all the time.
Where did it come? You were not born with anger, so where did it come from?
I think I was born with anger.
No.
I think
Why
these
would you be born
emotions
with
are
anger?
deeply human.
No. You're not born with anger. Children are not born with anger. It happens along the way.
True.
Yeah. Why would they be born with anger? They have not been into the world to be angry about anything.
Well, babies come out screaming and hollering.
But not because they're angry.
They kind of are angry.
So you don't know where your anger came from?
These human emotions are part of us from before we were born. I mean, I don't think they. I mean, I do think that people suffer traumas in childhood and so on, and that can inform their life. That's a real thing, of course. But in terms of
don't know where your anger started. You don't know how you developed anger.
I'm just saying, I was born with it, so were you. We're human beings.
No, I was not born with anger. No human beings are born with anger.
That's ridiculous.
Well, some are. If the mother is angry at the father or at men while being pregnant, she can traumatize the child in the womb. But if the mother is not angry, the child come out with innocent, with joy and peace. And along the road somewhere where the mother imposes her will on the child or angry at the father, she can take that out on the children and cause the kids to become angry. But kids are not naturally born angry.
I disagree with you.
Look at that. I guarantee you, Richard, I guarantee you, think about this. I guarantee you your anger came from your mother, and you're just like your mother because you become like who you resent. You take on that personality. Mm-hmm. Men are not naturally angry. It's an unnatural state of being for men, but it's passed down to them by the way of their mothers.
I think we're getting in a semantic dispute, but the fact is men getting angry, wanting to fight, getting frustrated, wanting to win, that's
not
the most
normal.
Natural thing in the world.
No.
Oh, come
Richard,
on.
I enjoyed talking to you. We're going to have to do this again.
Let's do it again.
All right, buddy.